Chase Chewning, welcome to Empower Network TV.
Amos, thank you so much for having me, man. Happy Friday to you and to everybody.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm excited to interview you after Yetta introduced us. I checked out some of your stuff actually before that, and you've built a great following. And so I know your story. I don't know your story of how you got here, but where you've arrived at, it's certainly inspirational. So let's jump into it, brother. I want to hear all about whatever you're willing to talk about and share. I want to hear how you did this. What is your upbringing? What did you overcome to get here? All those things really appeal to me. So take it away.
Ah, man, quite the Pandora's box there for sure. And, I feel like anytime that I retell my story, a couple different things happen. It reminds me of all of the hats that I've worn personally, professionally. It reminds me of all of the wild, crazy, up, down, and somewhere in between seasons of my life that really challenged me, that grew me, that showed me areas of my life that I needed to let go of, and certainly other ones that I need to keep up with. And so I love this aspect of storytelling. So, again, thank you for having me here today. I guess, starting in the beginning is always a good place. And I feel like it's one where a lot of people can maybe relate. We kind of downplay our situation. We feel like, who am I? I didn't really come from a whole lot, or, humble upbringings, or just maybe even it's hard to relate to where you came from because where you are is so far in terms of geography. I'm quite literally 3,000 plus miles away from where I grew up. But in some ways, I've come even more full circle back to home inside, which is pretty wild. So growing up in really the middle of nowhere, Southwest Virginia, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was just being nurtured and being just poured into by my family. I have this incredible gratitude and respect for the nature and nurture that was my upbringing. And I think a lot of us growing up in small towns, or, in my experience, in a very, religious household, we kind of butt heads. We have a lot of friction. We have maybe anger or resentment or frustration with our community or our family or our parents, our grandparents, whatever that upbringing was, because we usually don't have gratitude or can appreciate the things that we went through, the lessons we learned, right, until we're on the other side. And that was definitely kind of my case in many ways. The oldest of three, so this big brother trying to take care of his little brother and little sister. My parents divorced, split when I was pretty young. I was about 4 or 5 years old. So kind of this awakening of consciousness, really the first kind of period of my life when I can even remember memories, or go back that far. It's a period of time of separation, and really losing my parents and seeing mother and father struggle, and sometimes even argue, but just have worry in their life over their future and the future of their children, and financial concerns and family dynamics. But then I grew up, like I said, off of this incredible combination of nature and nurture, living off of our land. We had this beautiful, huge garden that we would basically eat all the food that we grew, and just would run amok basically in the mountains, and just had this incredible childhood, and not a care in the world. Definitely not a lot of money, but nothing but love, good food, and good people. Fast forward quite a bit, trying to figure out this next phase in my life, like we all get to, I think, when we're in school, if we're maybe thinking about looking at colleges or university or travel, or leaving the nest in some way, maybe getting a job for the first time, or getting out of your parents' household, or just getting out of your zip code. Like, what are you going to do with your life? Who are you going to be? What is that identity? What is that title that you want to step into for the first time? That's maybe finally for the first time your choice. And I was struggling. I had an incredible education. My parents bent over backwards to afford to put me into an incredible, small, private, Christian-based school for middle school and high school. And so I felt like I had a very strong educational foundation to look at colleges. I didn't have the best test scores. I wasn't the best student, but this education really, the sacrifice from my parents really definitely gave me a much higher chance than I ever would have otherwise. But even at that point, I struggled with, what am I going to be when I grow up? What am I going to study for the next 4 years? I mean, honestly, I think it's pretty ludicrous for anyone at 16, 17 years old, maybe for some people to know, I'm going to be this person. I'm going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. I'm going to be a marketing PR. I'm going to be whatever. I had some ideas, but nothing was just pulling me. Nothing was a hell yeah. So I began to kind of talk to my father a little bit. Him and I had an incredibly close relationship, and he presented, hey, Chase, what if we looked at maybe what I did? And he was in the military, he was in the army, and so was my uncle, and so was my grandfather, and so was my great grandfather, and so on and so forth. And so I kind of realized we have this really cool legacy of service. Pretty much every male, every generation has been in the military in some capacity for generations and generations and generations. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I also thought it was pretty cool that they were going to pay me at the time, this is 2003, a $20,000 sign-up bonus. So a 17-year-old kid growing up with not a lot of money, that's very, very appealing. Also, college benefits, medical benefits, all these things. Now, granted, also caveat, this was, like I said, 2003. We were really a nation at war. This was the height of OIF and getting into OEF. So it was a pretty tumultuous time to be considering joining the military, because you're joining a military that's at war. We're not at peace. So I kind of had to battle that of like, shoot, what if I get called up? Am I ready for that kind of experience? And I ultimately leaned into that and decided to pursue the military. I enlisted for 6 years, and a lot of things happened during that time period. But the two that really molded me the most, that have put me on my path where I am today, were really the most traumatic events in my life in some really different ways. One was the most physically traumatic experience in my life that also caused me to completely reevaluate the rest of my life and my identity. And this other was kind of this combo, unfortunately for me, was this incredible mental, emotional, and even spiritual traumatic experience. The physical one was my preparation for a deployment, where I wound up suffering career-ending injuries and blew out my back, tore my hamstring, wound up having to have both of my hips completely reconstructed, and ultimately led to me having to learn how to walk again twice due to the extensive surgery and rehabilitation nature of this, and just basically being in and out of the hospital, in and out of rehab, in and out of my house, and just nothing but recovering, being a patient for about a year and a half almost. And it was right before that physical event that the mental, emotional, spiritual one hit me. And that was the just out of nowhere death of my father. Well, I should say this out of nowhere diagnosis. He was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, shortly after actually I left for the military. And so about the first year and a half of my military career, my father was just at home dying. He had a very, very severe escalated case of this. And so when I came home at the age of 19 for a couple weeks of emergency leave to bury my father, I used to say a part of me kind of was buried then as well. This 19-year-old kid, this young man, this young soldier that had just left home to honor his father's legacy and to kind of literally be in his boots, not even in his shoes, but in his boots. I was just so confused and angry and mad at the world and mad at God and mad at me for, leaving home and abandoning my family during this hard time. And I just really struggled with it. And it was that struggle actually that sent me in this mental health spiral that kind of led me to the physical injuries that I sustained, I shared earlier. I just really had given up on living. I just didn't care anymore. I was actively pursuing harm's way. I was trying as much as possible to volunteer for deployments and just escape that pain, escape that anguish, escape that loss, and avoid grief and avoid the grieving process. And I just flat out didn't care. I was like, you know what, if I come home, cool. If I come home wrapped in a box in the American flag, I'll literally be following in my father's footsteps again, that have the same funeral that he did. And my family will be financially taken care of because the Army at that time just doubled our life insurance policy to about $400,000. So again, you can kind of see I'm painting a picture here a little bit of I'm pursuing things that I think that I want, but really trying to make everybody else happy because I think that's what they want. But also, if finances are in the picture, that is a huge motivator because I came from a place where we didn't have a lot of it. So I view anything financially oriented to a decision I'm making at that time was, oh, that's what you're supposed to do because it generates money. If not for you, then for your family. And so all of that happened, and my career got cut short in the military. I was medically retired actually at about the age of 24 after serving 6 years active duty. And it was that broken period of my life that forced me, I think, to kind of redevelop an appreciation for my life and what I want to do for my life. And so after leaving base, this medical hold unit in Texas at the time, and putting my wheelchair on the roof of my SUV and driving off base and now driving home, 1,500 miles back to Virginia, I began my life over again. And I chose to study the human body because I was like, I'll be damned if I'm going to be this 24-year-old kid on a cane still trying to just do life. I was like, I can't accept this. I've never known a life. I've never not known a life in movement. I'm not going to accept the fact that I'm going to be disabled or this is going to take X amount of time for me to get back to any resemblance of my past life. And so I committed to studying the human body and human experience and human potential. And so I went to school for exercise science. And in that process, learned things that helped me rehabilitate way faster than I was getting with my doctors and definitely anything through the VA system at the time. And also, I kind of fell in love with it. And I realized I actually really like this fitness thing, this health thing, this wellness thing. And so I began to help some other people. I began to train some other people. I began to give, advice, and I began to, create programs and dabble in social media, and wound up pursuing a pretty, I guess, my first real job after the military. I wound up being a health coach in a clinical, a concierge medical practice. Then I went back to grad school, or went to grad school for my master's in health promotion and nutrition. Wound up kind of climbing that ladder in that organization to be a wellness director for all of our offices. So not only having my own patients and clients I work with every day, but managing multiple other coaches in multiple other offices. And it really kind of reached its culmination point of realizing I would love to do this for myself. I'm building somebody else's dream, and I'm also hitting a lot of heads in this organization, just feeling overworked and undervalued, and just realizing that what I want no longer aligns with what they want. So I stepped away from that experience in 2017 to step out on my own. I think it's probably just a matter of time because after my father was out of the military, he was an entrepreneur for many, many years himself. We grew up in the restaurant business, and so my brother, had kind of begun to do this for himself as well a couple of years before me. So I kind of feel like it's in my blood, and just again, this nature and nurture for me was, I feel, only a matter of time. And so then, leaning into what I know to be true, my experience of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, and trying to just optimize those as much as possible, began a podcast and began an online health coaching company and began YouTube and all the other social media things. And then just kind of kept going. The last several years have just been my pursuit of me and coming home to me. And finally, for the first time, took me about 35 years to, really develop my own identity for myself, for no one else, for no other reason or purpose. And, no even financial inclination to make a decision other than like, who is Chase and what does he want to do? And so that's where I've been living and operating out of for the last few years. And that's how I got here.
I love you saying coming home, right? Coming home again to what was always there, kind of remembering what was inside. That's fantastic. What do you think? Isn't that one of the greatest journeys to go on?
Many of us don't realize it. I won't even say we don't realize it till it's too late. It's never too late. But it's one of those things that once you do realize it, to your point, it's not like a discovery of something that, oh, well, of course it took me so long to get here, or of course I can never feel this way or heal this way or grow this way. It's not this I finally obtain this thing or learn this piece of knowledge, it's an unveiling of stuff that has been in us all along. And it's, for me at least, it has just always been a familiarity of, oh, you know what? I felt this before and I ignored it. I heard this before and I didn't listen to it. I felt pulled in this direction before, but for whatever reason, dug my heels in. But now it's just a flow state, in and out.
What does your life look like now then? Because you got programs, you have a whole fitness thing. What is your life comprised of? You got a podcast?
Yeah, so I kind of made the choice a few years ago to commit to one thing, because as everything I was doing was growing and I wanted them all to be as successful as possible, but also maintain that value point as much as possible. I had to commit to one thing. And so about 3-ish years ago, I kind of dissolved my coaching practice. I had about 7 other coaches at the time through this business. And I decided just to completely go into podcasting. The show had been doing pretty well up to that point, monetization and great opportunities and just ton of passion with it. But I realized that that's where my passion lied the most. And I could still kind of bring in that through line of what I did in coaching. That was, help people as much as possible, give them information that they can apply, they can test when it comes to in the gym, in the kitchen, in their relationships, in themselves, all the ways that I say to live a life ever forward. And it was just really a matter of scale. You can only help one-on-one so much. You can only help one-on-one and group so much. I looked at where I had the most potential and where I had the most audience. And I wanted to pour more into that. And so leaning strictly into Ever Forward Radio a little over 3 years ago now was this incredibly freeing decision as well. But again, also kind of hanging up my hat a little bit of identity. People know me as Coach Chase. I'm the health coach. That's why I went to school and got all these certifications, and this is what I studied, and this is who I am. This is what people know me to be. It was more of a difficulty to kind of separate myself from that than actually deciding to just do what I wanted. It was still this kind of battle of, okay, well, what are other people going to think? Is this going to make sense? But completely freeing. Once I decided, I was able to commit just purely to one thing and pour everything that I want and have into that. That's really what I do these days. And just, I help other people live a life ever forward through the conversations that I have with renowned experts and authors and celebrities and singers and community leaders, and anybody who's just kind of taken this difficulty, this thing called life, and what they have overcome, how they've turned their obstacles into advantages, how they live a life ever forward, because we all come up against hard times or confusing times or great times, but it's just, are we going to stay there? This too shall pass when we're going through a horrible period of life, but also when we're going through a great period of life. Nothing is given. The only thing we are guaranteed is the work. And so that's what I'm about.
I just got chills when you said that, bro. I just got chills when you said that nothing is guaranteed except the work.
What is maintained, the suffering, it will pass. The success, it will pass. But all throughout that, the only thing that will get us out of that situation or into the next one is the work involved.
When we get to key mindsets then that you've learned, the people you're interviewing, you've interviewed a ton of people. What are the themes you're seeing, Chase, in these people's lives? What is the belief systems they all have?
I would say, collectively, I think everything works. When we are looking to grow, when we're looking to lose weight, when we're looking to level up our energy, when we're looking to get the next job or promotion or close the next deal or whatever, I think many times, myself included, we look for what's the thing, what's the hack, what's the secret sauce, what's the funnel, what's the marketing campaign, what's the the supplement, the whatever, what's the best exercise. Everything works. The only way it will not work is if you do not keep up with it. If you first and foremost make a decision that you abandon you break this promise to yourself and you don't give this thing, this action item, a fair chance, just so that you have consistency and can actually have, variables to measure to see what actually has moved the needle. But more specifically, I think when you make a choice to do anything for improvement in any area of your life, consistently doing that along the way, you realize why you are doing it or why not. And so I think collectively, of all the people that I've spoken to, how they were able to drop the weight, how they were able to transform their life, how they were able to overcome. I've talked to people that have literally fled Soviet Russia with their families with just a shirt on their back and full of lice in their hair. And I've talked to people that have bounced back from 7-figure bankruptcies, and people that have been the only surviving members of their family of a horrible accident, or just, whatever that obstacle was. The thing that got them from there to here is really not that important. Whatever that plan was is not that important. It's just that they chose something. Really, the bottom line there is that they chose themselves, and they just figured out a way to put one foot in front of the other and to move forward in some capacity. And along that way, they were able to take a look back and go, okay, like, here's how I did this, here's why I did this, and here's how I can keep doing it moving forward. I think everything works, and that's what I've seen in pretty much everyone that I've talked to. Everything works. It's just we have to choose, and we have to keep that choice. We have to keep that promise to ourselves long enough to give a fair valuation of, am I moving the needle in my life or not?
Wow. Love that. Am I moving the needle in my life or not? What matters to you most in today, Chase? What sets your heart on fire the most?
Honestly, seeing people in their element. I love nothing more than when I'm talking to somebody on Everforward Radio, or meeting a friend for coffee, or a new acquaintance, or any interaction in any capacity. Hearing, seeing, feeling that energy, that drive, that excitement, that commitment is, for me, probably the most inspirational, motivational aspect of my life, because it reminds me that you can be happy, you can live a purpose driven life, you can feel fulfilled, you can also do good, and you can create opportunities, you can create wealth, you can create anything you want to create when operating out of that clarity and that excitement to what just lights you up the most. Um, it gets me every time. And I'm someone that is very driven. I'm someone that is very committed to my mission, and still very curious along the way, not just going through life and work, with blinders on, like, this is my way, this is my mission, no matter what. Kind of having open eyes and, peripheral inputs is very helpful for the creative process, I found. I just love seeing that, and that lights me up. And anytime that I can see that in somebody else, it reminds me to, like, all right, get back to work, or like, never lose your drive, your why, Chase, or be around this person, these people more, because of the way that it makes you feel. Not only that experience, but I don't know about you, but when I walk away from people like that, hours, sometimes days, I'm lit. I'm just reminded, and so, creatively inspired to just keep going. And so that just sticks with me forever.
Which brings us to, okay, I want to ask your discipline routines. What are you reading? What are you working out? Like, how do you construct your life to support this hunger inside so you keep going ever forward? What is your day comprised of?
So quite literally, I kind of have my days built out dependent on the day, in terms of what version of me needs to be present the most. I started doing this probably about 4 years ago. And so I compartmentalize my days: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There's a version of me that is present, I'd say about 90%, so that I leave a little wiggle room for things, if I need to cover down, I need to step out of one role or one kind of thing, I can get the job done. Or just be flexible. I think also there's an important point here for being routine and being disciplined and being committed. But we do need some malleability within that, or else if we stay so rigid and stuck to no, this is what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, when I'm doing it, and these parameters and this time block with this supplement with these people, I think we're losing a lot of potential opportunity. We're also losing some lessons, and we're just creating extra stress in our life. Like if we just choose to be even just 10% flexible in these situations, we are going to significantly lower cortisol, lower stress, improve health, get better sleep, all these amazing health benefits. So Mondays, that's just the super, super sexy part of life and business, right? It's just admin. It's emails, it's confirming schedules for the week and maybe the rest of the month. I have one kind of standing call with my production team over at my podcast production company. And it's just all planning and admin and logistics and all that stuff. Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm just podcast chase. Those days I'm typically in studio recording, anywhere 2 to 3 episodes, usually 2 a day, but that also includes some extra prep time, and that includes travel time to the studio. And that just includes me only being podcast chase, host chase, interview chase. So it allows me to kind of let go of a lot of other worries or things that I need to do, because I know that I have other days allotted for that. So Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm podcast chase. Thursday, I typically keep open for phone calls, for a couple coaching call clients, or any kind of like Zoom phone call interaction. And then Friday, I try to make kind of a half day. What I mean by that is I will maybe schedule a couple things here and there. Maybe something didn't get done during the week, but more often than not, I'm trying to make this an IRL day, to get me out of the house, to get me, go to a coffee house, go to a co-working spot, meet somebody, get out there in real life and have that exchange, catch up with a friend. Maybe this would be meeting a potential guest for like a pre-interview kind of situation. And then, I like to wrap my day around usually 2-ish. And then I'm either, catching a workout, or usually I'm going on a really long walk on Fridays, anywhere from like an hour and a half to 2 hours kind of thing, as my way to just really transition and separate from the work week, so that I can really take the downtime and relax and have fun on the weekends. So compartmentalizing and dividing my days into what version of me needs to be present most has really allowed me to just be way more productive, get way better at time blocking, increase time for certain things, decrease time for other things, and just know really what I'm saying yes to and what I'm saying no to make me as efficient as possible.
I've never heard that before. Not the way you just said that. That's gonna ring. That's gonna ring well for people that hear this. What version of yourself are you showing up as on a Tuesday, and making allowance for that? That's a really cool concept.
Thank you. Thank you. I wish I could say I could take total credit for it. I feel like I heard that somewhere. A lot of my productivity and, when it comes to time blocking and goal setting and just what I'm doing and when, I do credit. I read this book years ago, and every January I read it again. Actually, I listened to the Audible, The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. That for me was the game changer in terms of getting more efficient. What the hell is a time block? How to, their whole thing is, what's the catchphrase? What's the one thing that you can do so that by doing it, everything else either becomes unnecessary or is made easier? I might be paraphrasing there a little bit, but yeah. And I revisit that every January, and it just solidifies that, yep, compartmentalize stuff, figure out which version of yourself needs to show up so that you can get that job done and serve the people that you need to serve. But like I said earlier, it's really about knowing what to say yes to and what to say no to, or maybe just not right now.
Okay, can we go there for a bit? What to say yes to, what to say no to? Because did you ever struggle with people pleasing as being the
Oh,
oldest?
all the time. Like I've gotten a lot better. I think a lot better, but it's definitely still there. Great point. Being the oldest son. Also, like I said, kind of navigating the loss of my father, kind of feeling like stepping into, again, my perception here, no one asked this of me, but being kind of like the man of the household, the father figure in the household now, being the guy that everybody in my family comes to, even beyond just the older brother. all the leadership positions that I've been in, both in the military, as I worked my way up as an E6, a staff sergeant, then being a manager and director, in the corporate world, running my own business. And so just always being, in a leadership position and having a lot of responsibilities or a lot of perceived responsibilities, it's definitely something that's been a struggle. But this has been a game changer for me. So when somebody asks me, hey, can we do this? Can I schedule that? When are you free? I no longer scramble to try and go, oh, I see a 45-minute white space on Wednesday. So the people pleaser in me wants to go, yes, I can give you this time because it's sooner. And I think that's better for you. But I haven't even asked you if sooner is better. But instead, I go, okay, Thursday. Okay, Thursday. You want to meet in person? Okay, Friday. If we're scheduling a podcast, okay, Tuesday, Wednesday. Anything on Monday? No. Sorry, not available. So it's just an immediate kind of rule book for me to go to for my life. And I think everybody in some way can build something similar. Maybe you don't have the ability right now in your personal, professional life to be so specific on what day is what version of you. But I guarantee you that if you look at your calendar objectively, there are a lot of opportunities for making something like that happen.
Okay, so this ties right into boundaries. So what do you say to the person, Chase, that's struggling? They recognize they need help with boundaries, but they're like, I don't know how to choose me. I don't know how to say no. Where do they go with this?
A couple things come to mind. One, insert a pause, insert a breath. I think when it comes to people pleasing, maybe I'm alone here, but it's a pretty immediate kind of compulsion to agree to whatever was just asked of you. So I don't want any awkward downtime. I don't want you to think anything other than me of being, yes, of course, I'll do whatever you need. I'm here for you, blah, blah, blah. If nothing else, just pause. Take a breath, take a couple breaths, allow yourself to create a little time and distance in that moment to what you feel like you should say to allow the opportunity to come out, maybe what you want to say. Maybe it doesn't change, but compounded over time, I guarantee you, if you stack up a few of those breaths, a few of those pauses, you're going to build up the courage, the confidence, the just awareness to go, actually, I have a choice here. I can say yes, I can say no. Maybe I don't need to say anything at all right now. Beyond that, I think maybe in like a written capacity, email, text, something like that, maybe more professional. I've kind of found increasing the time in a response has worked significantly well, especially in email and like the professional world. Because instead of me immediately replying to an email going, hey, can you help me with this? Or I have a question or blah, blah, blah. If I push that back an hour, or maybe I get it in the morning and I reply, I have email time, kind of spread out through the day. So maybe I wait until the second half of the day. More often than not, that problem has already been resolved. By giving time and space, you're allowing them the opportunity to problem solve and to figure this out on their own instead of just coming to you because they think you have the answer, or maybe you helped them out with something in the past. You're also alleviating any situation where you feel like you need to people please because you're just not even having that conversation. So it's kind of just like an extension of the first thing that I said, but it's really just a matter of what's the circumstance. Are you physically present with someone, or is this kind of digital? I think taking a breath, inserting a pause, giving a little bit of time and space can really do wonders. And like I said, I think most people actually will figure that stuff out on their own. And then you don't even need to have the conversation that most people get anxious about in terms of people pleasing.
So what I wanted to ask you then, conversations, what are the hardest conversations you've had to have with yourself, Chase?
Ooh, that, let me take a step back. One of the things I struggled with for many years was wondering if I'm doing the right thing with my life. A lot of that is wrapped up in the fact that My father is no longer alive. He left this world about 18 years ago. And we had such a close relationship. In many ways, what I've been doing with my life since he passed, I've still been in pursuit of, I hope dad can see me, or if he could see me now, I wonder, would he agree with this decision? Or I would love to talk to him about this thing. And I had a lot of this wrapped up, and it was never this relationship of I'm trying to please my father, or I need his approval for all of these things. It wasn't that dynamic. It was just, I loved and respected him so much, and he loved and respected me so much, and he entrusted me my entire life with making right choices and then correcting me lovingly but sternly when maybe I made a decision that was not in alignment with the values and ethics and morals and just things that we kind of collectively as a family agreed on. And so I was always struggling, am I doing the right thing? He would be happy of me and proud of me because I'm happy and I'm proud, but it's this unknowing that I struggled with. And so much so that it influenced my life in really unique ways of always doing the right thing, of never stepping out of line, and even more so casting judgment on people that did, casting judgment on people that I viewed acted in a way that might be immoral, illegal, making decisions that, in my opinion, up here in my high tower, are just wrong and I'm right. And a couple years ago, I had a very unique conversation with myself about all of this. And then I literally just turned. I was with a group of friends at the time. It was like a Friday, Saturday evening, hang out in a friend's backyard around a campfire. I think we had some food, some wine. It was just maybe like 8 or 10 people. And a lot of those things that I struggled with those people in particular, even though we're friends, I just asked myself, would dad be proud of these people? Would he be proud of me hanging out with them? Would he be okay? And it was just this overwhelming yes, because I was able to look at myself and my life objectively and go, Chase, you are in an amazing marriage. You have an amazing woman in your life. She's right there. You have friends that are here that are just pouring love out in ways that you never thought possible, probably subconsciously that you thought you never felt you deserved. Despite whatever they're doing or not doing, there's no way that your father would be anything other than happy and proud for you right now because of the level of happiness and love that you are surrounding yourself with. And so from that moment on, I was able to just shed all of these questions and litmus tests, I was holding myself to, and just judgment I was holding for other people, and just not only increased my happiness, but the capacity in many of those friendships doubled, tripled, because I literally let go of this judgment and kind of wall really that I had with some of them. And relationships and friendships have flourished, and we have opened up this whole new level of safe container in our lives around each other that, like, there's no denying my dad would be happy. And so that was a really hard conversation I had with myself, and one, I had to let go of a lot of things. But more specifically, I had to step into a lot of new things as well. So it's less often we're just shedding something, we're shedding something and having to put something else on too at the same time.
It's amazing what you said there. I'll be thinking about that today. And I want to go, as we wrap here, Chase, I wanted to ask you lastly, where are you considering going next? What places within yourself are you looking at going, you know what? I need to explore that more. I need to go deeper here because I know there's stuff in you. I can see it in your eyes. And I'm curious, where are you going next, brother?
Where I'm going next, I feel like all these kind of revelations or epiphanies or experiences or shedding of identity and stepping into new identities I've been talking about have only come about in my life for the past, 2 to 3 years, maybe 3 years. And so I feel like for the first time in now 37 years, I know who I am. I know who I am. I know who I am not. And it has been the last 3 years of discovering that, of rediscovering some parts of that, and shedding identities that I don't need to keep alive anymore, and keeping ones that I do want to keep, but also nurturing and developing new ones. And finally going, this is Chase. This is how he wants to live his life. This is how he chooses to operate. This is what he wants to do with his life and for the people around him. So 3 years is really not a lot of time to kind of, go, I know who I am and I know what I want to do. But where I want to go is I want to go to where I have complete and utter confidence in stepping into that and keeping that and representing that version of Chase in the world. Probably because, of the work that I do and, putting myself out there in all forms of media all the time. I'm a little bit more conscious of that. So I'm very aware now, have a lot of intention around the version of Chase that is finally coming to literally the light, and being shared with the world. And so I want to do that because I want to now create the rest of my life out of that clarity and out of that true identity. But more specifically, I want to do it as a model of what is possible for other people when they shed versions of themselves that no longer serve them, when they finally question a thing, or in my case, all of the things in their life, and realize that like that's okay. First and foremost, it's okay to question things. And honestly, it's important to question things. And so I want to just be very clear, but also considerate of the version of myself that I share with other people because of the platforms that I have and the examples I might be setting for a person or thousands of people. Because I think what we're dealing with there is the most delicate thing in the world. You're potentially allowing someone to change the course of their life should they choose to. And that's a pretty powerful thing. If there's a community of people, if you're walking out in public, if you're wherever, and there's a group of people that have zero doubt of who they are and what they want to do with their life, who they are not and what they don't want to do with their life, versus a group of people that are just going through the motions. I, of course, want to be with the first group, but also that is a very potentially powerful group of people for good, I think. But it's just, you never know who is watching. You never know what people are going to take away. And I also just want people to know, this is my choice to live my life. What I do may not necessarily always be the best choice for you, but the important thing is that I'm making choices for me, and I want everyone else to do the same.
Wow. This has been amazing, Chase, to spend this time with you so that we can learn from this deep well you have. And you might only be 37, but I tell you, man, people can feel what you're saying. The litmus test is you're living it. You have results to prove it. And when you speak, it's from a place of experience. It's not from just head. We can feel your heart. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm definitely living a very heart-centered life now. I spent the first 35 years of my life from up here, operating out of the head or just letting the head drive everything. I finally stopped and let the heart speak and, really pay attention to what it needed, what it wanted, what it was feeling. And yeah, sometimes the head still wins. Sometimes the head, I think, at least in my life, needs to kind of be the stronger voice or needs to kind of lead. But yeah, definitely just coming back to heart, living very heart-centered and just making time for that, to just see what that feels like and see what that voice is saying is something that anybody can do. It's just, like people pleasing, just give yourself a pause, just give yourself a moment, insert stillness as regularly as possible, and then just let the heart do the rest of the work. It'll do the speaking for you.
Mic drop. Ever Forward podcast, Ever Forward with Chase Chewning. Please comment, let them connect with him. Chase, I'll be tagging you in this after. Please drop your links to your podcast. Anything else you got, brother? Let's drop it in.
No, if anybody enjoyed anything they heard here today, this is very similar to content I have in terms of solo episodes, but also mostly interview style on Everforward Radio. And predominantly, I'm hanging out on Instagram at Chase_Chewning.
All right, Ever Forward Radio. Thank you, Chase, for being here. Thanks for doing this. If you've been watching, listening to Empower Network TV, you've heard from Chase Chewning, Ever Forward Radio. And Chase, I got to bounce to the next one, but you were a real gift to me. Just so you know, there's some key things you said here,
Thank you,
stuff
Amos.
I'm going through, and you impacted my heart today. So from me to you, thank you, Chase.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you to everyone. And if I can ever do anything, you guys don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you. Ever Forward.
Thanks. Chat soon.